Hi, Judge Andrew Napolitano here, and you are on Freedom Watch with my very good friend and colleague, former Deputy Assistant Secretary of Defense under President Reagan and a Fox News national security analyst, K.T. McFarland. Now, K.T., I know you look at this White House race and perhaps see it a little differently than I do, but I want to suggest to you that in your field of expertise, which is foreign affairs, we have the anomaly of a liberal Democrat, Mrs. Clinton. I'm going to assume they're going to get the nominations for this conversation, running to the right of a self-proclaimed conservative Republican. So on many issues, from Syria to NATO to North Korea to Russia, Mrs. Clinton is far more bellicose, far more traditional Republican, far more willing to resort to the military, and Donald Trump is less in every instance. How do you explain
You are absolutely right. In fact, if you
I thought we were going to have an argument. Now you're telling me I'm right.
No, but you're one of the only people that understands that. I mean, if you had your blinders on and you ticked off who's the one that's questioning the NATO alliance, who's the one that's questioning the hardline stance against Russia, who's the one who's questioning our involvement in the Middle East?
Who says Saudi Arabia and South Korea and Japan should get nuclear weapons? Something that's been anathema.
Yeah, I think he's actually walked back from that. But you're absolutely right. Donald Trump, in a weird way, is running to the left of Hillary Clinton.
Okay,
we haven't had that since Nixon.
How did this come about? Because much of what Trump has been saying, if he sticks to it, and if he's thought it through, two big ifs, sounds more like Ron Paul than Mitt Romney or John McCain or any of the Bushes.
Well, here's what he's tapped into. The Republican Party, and I'm a Republican, had sort of two wings of it. It's a civil war. Those two wings are at civil war with each other. The one wing is the interventionist nation-building wing. That's George W. Bush. That's the neoconservative.
That's Lindsey Graham and John McCain.
That's Lindsey Graham and John McCain.
Okay.
And they were in favor of the Afghan war. They were in favor of nation-building in Afghanistan. They were in favor of the Iraq war. They were not in favor of the Iraq withdrawal. They were in favor of the Libyan war. They were in favor of a more bellicose stand.
They, like Mrs. Clinton, want to topple Assad using military force.
Absolutely. They're the hawks.
Okay.
And Hillary is actually pretty comfortable in that hawkland. On the other hand, are the wing that Donald Trump talks about, which is more the Kissinger wing, which is more the Reagan wing, which is we're only going to defend our vital interests, not just the things we want to get accomplished, but the things that make existential difference to us. And if we do get involved militarily, we're going to do it to win. And when we negotiate our treaties, we are going to be tough negotiators, and we will only negotiate from a position of strength.
If the U.S. pulls out of NATO, or if the U.S. insists on only paying its fair share of NATO, won't Putin be ecstatic, and won't he be unleashed?
Here's what I think.
Or is that the Lindsey Graham, John McCain argument?
That's their argument. In fact, their argument about Brexit, and one of the reasons they wanted Britain to stay in the European Union was because they didn't want to make Putin happy. Trump comes at it. Here's what I like about him. Like Reagan in 1980, Trump has come in and said, wait, for 15 years, we've had foreign policy that didn't work. Reagan said the same thing. Republicans and Democrats, we had foreign policy that didn't work. And Reagan rethought détente. He rethought mutually assured destruction. Trump has come in, and he hasn't made any conclusions yet. But he's saying, let's rethink this. What's the relationship with Russia? Do we need to be in the Middle East? Why do we need to be in the Middle East in the middle of civil wars? So it's a rethink.
When he says he wants to talk to the maniacal dictator of North Korea, is that an allegory, or does he really mean he wants to sit down in the same room and with translators have a direct communication with this creep?
Well, he's also said that the only country with any influence over North Korea is China.
Well, nobody can really dispute that.
And we have influence over China, which we're not using. If we were to use that influence and leverage over China to encourage China to use its leverage over North Korea.
What does the military establishment want? A cautious, let's rethink everything Donald Trump, or a gung-ho, I never met a war I didn't like, I never met a terrorist getting a gun I didn't like, because the Benghazi report's coming out soon. Hillary Clinton.
Okay, I think that Trump is not anti-military. He's anti, let's say, interventionism without any real purpose to it and without a clear goal of victory.
She would say the purpose of intervening in Syria is to get rid of a monster. And Trump would say, and what monster is going to replace that monster?
Trump would say what monster replaces that monster. And as we've seen, whether it's in Libya, whether it's in Iraq, often the monster that comes after the dictator is a lot worse. And Trump has, however, in defense of his foreign policies, he's been very adamant about a really ramped-up military spending, which is what Reagan did.
Has he thought these things through?
You know, I think a lot of it is he's got good instincts. Certainly the NATO thing, I mean, I've for years said NATO ought to pay its fair share, and NATO hasn't. I've for a long time said we can't go to war with everybody. We can't go to war with Iran, Iraq, and North Korea, and China, and Russia. So let's pick out of that group, is there anybody we could support?
Got it.
I believe in a really strong defense, not because we would then use it, but because we don't have to use it.
Always a pleasure, Casey.
Thank you, Judge.
Thank you for joining us. From New York, defending freedom whenever they let me. See you next time, America.
This is terrific.